Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Fly Tying with Bobby. Today I'm going to be tying out of H. Kent Helvie's book. I decided to do something different this time with my videos and jump onto steelhead flies. Most of the other videos dealt with trout flies. I decided I wanted to go a different route this time and teach you some techniques on steelhead flies. So this is the book that I'm using right here, and today we're going to be tying what's called a black prince. Here is the black prince right here. I don't know if you can see this. It's going to be the one up in the top right corner here. And this is pretty much an easy fly to start with. I didn't want to get into anything that was too demanding on the flies right away. Some of you guys may be novice tyers, some of you guys may be expert tyers, whatever. But I'm starting with something that's a little more simple because this is more of a basic video on the basics of tying good looking steelhead flies. Now there's a couple of techniques that I'm going to be going over with you guys today, and I've already tied my base wrap here. If you haven't watched my other videos, there's other videos that address the base wrap and the basics of just that on the trout videos. So, and it's the same principle on this one here. My tools that I'm using today are my Dr. Slick scissors. I'm using the hair comb to comb out my deer hair. I'm using yellow floss, Unifloss. I'm using it in a bobbin because it's a little bit more easier to control that way. I'm using black yarn for the body. Now the ingredients call for all these things here. When it comes to the floss or the yarn here, this is wool yarn, by the way, and this is what the book calls for. I try to stick to pretty much what the book calls for, but there's no written rule that you have to use this. You can use some black dubbing as well as you can use some yellow dubbing for the tail. So I encourage you guys to kind of play around with it and change it up a bit and see what works best for you. I just choose to use what the book says. This is oval tinsel, and it's small, and then this is oval tinsel also, and it's fine. And the fine tinsel I'm going to use for the very tag end. I want something really small, but as far as the wrap going around the body, I wanted something a little bit bigger, so I chose to go with the small. Again, fine and small, two different sizes. Fine, very small, small, a little bit bigger. The black deer hair, this is all I'm using here, is just deer hair tied black. I've got my hair stacker here. I've got my red hackle feathers for the tail end of the fly, and I've got my black hackle for the collar of the fly. This is my whip finisher. If you guys choose to do your own half hitches, that's fine. Some of you guys that are more experienced, you might choose to do the half hitch. I choose to use the whip finish tool. There is a video that shows you how to use the whip finish tool. And then my hackle pliers, a little bit of a step up. It has the nice wood handle down here and everything like that. So anyway, that's my tools and that's the stuff I'm using. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in the tag end with the fine tinsel, which is really small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch just the very, very tip of that tinsel there and try to trap it down just like that, and see how it rolled under. That's what you don't want. So what you have to do is you have to get your fingers right up tight, and you have to get the thread right up tight to it, kind of lay it more on your side so that when it traps it down, it rolls it right up to the top, just like that. And I'm going to go through that with about maybe 3 wraps. I don't want to wrap 6 or 7 or 8 wraps on that, because what happens is you start really building up the fly on the end. And this is one of my best tricks. When you're building steelhead flies, you don't want to build a big fat body on there because it gets looking ugly, and then you get a lot of material on there and it falls apart on you. So here's what you want to do. You want to trap that down, then you want to take this here out to the front, the thread, take that out to the front. So what I do is I come down with the wrap and I build a small little tail. The reason I do the wraps on the oval tinsel down and back is so that when the oval tinsel goes down and comes back, first it goes down this way, but then when it comes back it goes this way, so it really traps it down good on the hook there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to tie in our body, and that's going to be part of the body is going to be the yellow floss. So the first thing we want to do is, since we're going to wrap our body with the oval tinsel, the bigger oval tinsel coming up, what we'll need to do is we'll need to tie that in first. So I'm going to tie in the oval silver tinsel for the body, and I'm also going to tie in my yellow floss. And I'm going to do this at the same time. And the reason I do this is to avoid wrapping one on and a bunch of thread, wrapping another one on and a bunch of thread. This is how you keep your fly down to a minimum. So I'm going to take these two materials and I'm going to tie them both in right at the same time. With both of those materials tied in, you can see that the body, the first third of the body right here, is very sleek, and that's what we want. Now we can go ahead and tie our little red tail in out of the hackle fibers right here. So my next step is to go ahead and tie the tail on. Now with the tail tied on, I can go ahead and wrap my yellow floss around it. Now that I have the yellow floss tied in, I can go ahead and tie in the black wool yarn. So I'll go ahead and do that. With my black yarn tied in, you can see that the body is pretty even from front to back, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't want a big fat body here and a skinny body here, but at the same token I don't want a fat body here and a skinny body here. So what I want to do is I want to try to make both of these parts equal. And as you can see, the book says that the first third of the body should be the yellow floss and the second 2/3 should be the yarn. So if you were to divide this in half, roughly at this point right here, you can see that it's about 1/3 for each section, here and here. So that's about right. If you're not exactly 3/3 or 1/3, it's okay, it doesn't matter. The next thing we need to do is we need to take our tinsel right here and wrap it around the body. Now one thing that I do when I wrap my tinsel is I'm wrapping my materials on in a motion away from me, towards the camera like this, and I'm wrapping it towards the front, towards the camera. When I wrap my tinsel on, however, I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to bring it towards me, and I'm going to wrap that way. And the reason why is because again, just like on your tag end there, we want to counterwind our wraps so that this secures this and this, because this is not only for the purpose of having something shiny on here, but it's also to bind these materials down. And when the fish start biting on this floss right here, it's going to start chopping it up. One thing that this tinsel will do here is it will secure it down, and it will help that floss from coming unraveled, which will keep your fly more secure for a longer period of time. You can fish this fly for a longer period of time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wind our tinsel around the body. Okay guys, so now I have the tinsel wound around the body, and you'll see that my tinsel is about ending on the third wrap around our yellow floss here. You don't want to wind too many wraps of tinsel on there because then you start covering up your materials. And I also look in the book, and I see from the book here, I don't know if you can see this, I'll try to get it down here so you can see it, but the book shows that it has a wrap here, and that third wrap starts at the black part. So that's what I've done there. I try to stick to Kent Helvie's tying patterns because he's a very experienced fly tyer, and I know that he makes good flies, and so that's what I try to do. I try to get my wraps nice and tight with my hackle pliers here, but I also try to make big wraps so that, yeah, you get the effect of it, but we're not overdoing it on our tinsel. The tendency to always want to do when you're wrapping tinsel is to put too much on, and try not to do that, guys. That's one thing that most fly tyers do when they're first starting out. So be very frugal on your wraps, get it on there, but make sure that you can see it. You can see it a lot better when it's dispersed. If there's too much on there, it gets too busy. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to take our black hackle here and we want to make our collar. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and strip this fiber off, and I'm going to tie it in from here, about here on the feather, starting about here, and then I'm going to tie it forward. So I'm not going to use this whole feather, and I'm not going to use this little stuff down here. I'm going to get right to about the middle part of the feather here, and then tie from there on up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick my scissors in here, and I'm just going to cut it like that, right there. Get rid of that tip part. So what I have is this right here. I'm going to pull the hackle feathers back just like that, so I kind of have that sticking out right there. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to, now that I have all those barbs splayed out, I'm going to go ahead and just trim this end right here, so that all I have is just that little bit there, so that when I trim it up, when I trim the feather up, that's what it looks like right there. And I'm going to tie this little part right here in so that I have something to tie to. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these barbs back, and I'm going to go ahead and tie it in just like that, right at the point where the barbs start. That's where I'm going to lay my first wrap. Now that I have the hackle tied in, I'm going to go ahead and wind it around. One thing you'll notice on a feather is there's a top side and a bottom side. This here is the top side, and this side is the bottom side. It's the part that curves down, and you experienced tyers, you know what I'm talking about. You always want to tie your fly and your hackle on there. You want to tie it so that these things are coming this way here, so the top side is facing towards the front of the hook. That way when you tie it down, your feather will always want to have the tendency to curve back. So let's go ahead and wrap this on. As I wrap this feather on, I'm going to be combing these barbs back because I don't want to wrap over these barbs. I want to always wrap in front of the barbs. So I'm going to pull these barbs back. I'm going to make sure that my top is facing forward, and I'm going to, every time I come over the top, I'm going to make sure that the barbs are forward. Give it a little comb and make another wrap. When I take the hair out of this, I'm going to take a patch of probably about maybe 1/4 of an inch around, and so you pull the hair forward, you get it separated, and just make a snip. It looks like a lot of hair at first, but we're going to get rid of some, and you'll see what happens. So go ahead and watch the video on stacking and combing your deer hair. That will help you a lot. As a matter of fact, watch the spinning deer hair video because you'll learn something there, as well as combing out the deer hair. You'll learn how to spin deer hair. It's a really good video. I encourage you to watch that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and comb this out, clean this up, and tie my wing on. Okay, so with the wing tied on, I'm ready to whip finish this. Now, here's a little tip that's going to help you to get your wing to lay back a little better. Do you notice how the wing is kind of standing up here and it's not really laying back? Here's the trick, guys. Take the whole mess like this, come with your thread, and make some loose wraps around this back, very back part here. Just loose, don't even bind it down, just kind of very loosely. Go ahead and wrap that right there. Now, do you see what that did? It made the wing lay back a lot nicer. That's how you achieve that right there. Had I just left it sticking up, well, the wing would have stuck up a lot, and so it lays back a lot better like this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to whip finish this. Again, in the tools section, you can see how to whip finish a fly. Real simple operation once you get it. Okay, and there's the finished fly. And we'll go ahead and cut our thread. And there's a couple things I want to point out on this fly here. Okay, so you see how the head is very small, cone shaped, which is what we're looking for. The smaller the head you can get here, the better. You don't need a big fat head. The tendency is going to be want to wrap a bunch of wraps of thread on there. Try not to do that. Try to keep your heads smaller. The smaller the head is, the better the fly will look. Another thing is if you'll notice right here, if you can zoom right into it, right here you can see now the thread doesn't come up to the eye. The thread is actually behind the eye. So every time we go to stick our leader in here, we got a nice clean, clear shot. We can get it right through there. So always remember to put a little bit of gap, a little bit of distance right here so that you can get your line in there. The tendency is going to be want to tie this fly all the way up to the eye, and you will do that a few times when you're first learning. The intermediate guys that are watching this and the advanced guys, you already know this, but for the beginner guys, be careful of running your materials up too far to the front, because when you do that, then you end up with your thread around your eye and it's really hard to get your line through there. Another thing that does is the thread can actually roll off. Here's one other thing that I do. I use this stuff here. It's called hard as hull cement, and all I do is I just go on there and I just brush a little dab on there on the very front of the fly, and it gives that lacquered look on the front of your fly there, just like the stores when you go and buy them from the stores. It'll have that lacquered appearance. So just go ahead and dab some of that on there. You can be pretty generous with it, and don't worry, the fish are not going to smell this. Once the fly is done, this will dry nice and hard and clear. Another thing that this cement here will do is it will secure those top wraps that you put on there, those loose top wraps right there. So it'll kind of solidify those in there. Even though they're loose, it'll glue them down so they're not going to go anywhere. And there, guys, is the Black Prince. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. H. Kent Helvie is the book that I took it from. Watch for more of my videos. I'm going to have more on fly tying, and you can see that it looks pretty darn close to the picture there. So if you follow the tying methods that I've laid down for you here, you can tie flies that look exactly like this one. So that's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed my new video on tying steelhead flies, the basics, and we will have some more, and I'll see you all really soon. Thanks for watching my video.